if you don't approach a story with a preset based on who you are, who your parents were, whom you're married to, whom you used to be married to, all those congeries of factors that give us our prejudices, which we call our opinions or our certainties, then you're not alive. What a reporter is supposed to do is to be aware of his preset, and then if the facts that he uncovers go against that, to change the preset. Recently, I saw a marvelous example of this at my own paper. A young reporter, a guy named Barry Michael Cooper, he's black. His assignment was to look into those kids who allegedly raped and strangled and beat unmercifully that young woman in Central Park. He did indeed go around the neighborhood, talk to people, and he came back with facts that indicated, contrary to what was printed in the New York Times and most of the other places, that these were not good kids, that their parents certainly had tried hard to make them into good kids, but they were terrors in the neighborhood and had been for a long time, particularly against some Hispanic people who lived across the street. I don't think Cooper expected to find that. It was especially hard for him as a young black reporter to write what he found, but as he said to me, he said, I had no choice. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do, is tell what the facts are. If you don't go into a story with a preset, then where have you been? I go into stories with them all the time. I had a preset, for example, that, let us say, Judge Bork was, for various reasons, in my preset, because my idols are Brennan and Douglas, whom I think is vastly underrated these days, and Black, whom I disagree with on many things, but and I thought that Bork, because of my preset, was really unfit to be on the court. And now that I see who his successor was, I wish I had thought more carefully when I wrote about Bork, because at least, although I do still think that Bork is essentially a majoritarian, which makes him less sensitive to individual rights and liberties than a Supreme Court justice should be, at least he's an independent thinker. And his successor, Justice Kennedy, is quite clearly not.
Now, wait a minute. Are you saying that Hentoff is not a majoritarian?
No, good Lord, I wouldn't be such a heretic, and I wouldn't be so maligned and receive death threats occasionally if I were. Much of the time I write against the tide, including the majoritarian, that is the majority views, prejudices, whatever, of the community. I wrote against the invasion of Lebanon by Israel in 1982. Never received so many letters inviting me, showing me various ways to commit suicide expeditiously on anything I've ever written. I am opposed to what's going on now in college campuses around the country. I think it's the most dangerous trend in the country. You've got at some of the prestige schools, University of Wisconsin, University of Michigan, the University of California at Berkeley, and various other places, because there have been, and indeed have been, very ugly incidents of racist, sexist behavior on campus, the reaction to that is not more speech, more attempts to show people what all this leads to and where it came from. The reaction to that among liberals, including faculty member, administrators, and the students themselves, with very few exceptions, is to set up a new set of rules that will punish speech, that will punish racist, sexist speech, which is wholly violative of both the letter and the spirit of the First Amendment. And more importantly, I mean, Potter Stewart, the late Supreme Court Justice, said that whenever you see censorship in a society, it shows that it has lost confidence in itself. Boy, isn't that true now of the campuses.
Yes, but you know, my wife accuses me of defining words and phrases and notions the way I want to, the way...
Humpty Dumpty.
Okay. Majoritarian.
Yeah.
You're not anti-majoritarian.
In some respects, you have to be.
In some respects...
I mean, James Madison made it very clear. I will paraphrase rather liberally here. He said at one point, I guess it was in 1789 or 1790, he said, you know, George III is no longer the enemy. We've beaten George III. The enemy is us. And the reason for the courts and the reason for the Bill of Rights is that the majority is often wrong, and there has to be a place where the individual dissident, the individual minority view is heard and strengthened and allowed to continue to say what he or she wants to.